One team makes it to the grand finals here in Fnatic, live from Jönköping, Sweden, as we do have 3 teams remaining now down in the lower bracket. 1 European, 2 Korean, and we're about to have world champion going up against world champion to find out who gets the privilege to fight against Dignitas. I am joined here by Jayhow, we have Grubby, we have Fan, and usually when we get this stipulation, it's the grand finals. L5 going up against MVP Black. It's a dream fixture once again.
It is. I mean, we talked about the parity of normally we're looking at the brackets completely opposite.
Yeah.
But now we had the familiarity of Dignitas and Fnatic. Guys, remember the last time MVP Black and L5 played was just about a month ago? And it was a 2-0 in favor of MVP Black in a best-of-5, and guess who won the last 3 games? L5. So just like we had in the previous series, we could have just as many fireworks in this one.
Now, I would say MVP Black is the resounding favorite, but they looked occasionally a little bit more fragile than you would attribute to a world champion of MVP Black's caliber and reputation. They lost the map to Roll20.
Yes.
2 days ago, I would have said MVP Black would destroy L5, but now I'm simply not sure anymore, especially after last series. On this world stage, anything can happen.
Well, let's check in with the brackets just to update everybody as to where these teams have come from down in the lower bracket as well as MVP. Obviously, having come from the upper bracket when they were going up against Team Dignitas there in that 3-1 victory for the Europeans. So overall, what we've seen is these guys still stay alive, beat out some pretty heavy competition in teams like E-Star. Roll20 put a good fight up there as well. And Fan, overall, these 2 teams, I don't think I'd have it any other way, really. At the moment in Heroes of the Storm, to still have these 2 teams alive going into the upper echelons.
Yeah, I gotta say, for the Korean teams here, the thing that stands out to me is, surprisingly enough, this tournament, I think their inconsistency has been the consistency here. So when I look at Europe, they're very, very consistent. It's so hard to take either squad down. They go to the last, team fight. They play very, very well, very clean. And when I look at Korea, L5 looked on fire today, but for like the past 2 or 3 days, MVP Black has looked like the better team. So I don't actually know really who the better team is here. They're inconsistent. They swap day to day. Yeah,
they definitely have been. As you've previously mentioned, L5 for a lot of the group stage, especially losing 3 maps to Team Dignitas, looked a bit meh. That's a scientific term, by the way. Meh. Not in a great spot. MVP Black, obviously, looking pretty good in the group stages, having a map here or 2 lost out. But then in the upper bracket, Dignitas again. Meh. How does this keep happening? So going up against one another, though, I think we're probably going to end up in a similar situation to Europe versus Europe, where it's not all absolute meta. They do know each other very well, these teams.
They don't have to change anything. Coming into this tournament, they had to change a lot to adapt to the other teams, particularly the European teams, and we even saw some struggles with North America. Admittedly, and no disrespect to any of the teams, but L5 went against Nomia day 1. E-Star, who we thought was going to be great, ended up stumbling. So L5 the last few days, 6-0, but they're coming in here against a much tougher test. So I think that this will look a lot different for L5 in this series than they've had in their first 2 series since the bracket stage started.
Well, let's focus on L5 now, as they're our first team coming into this in the lower bracket is SCSC. We've talked to him many, many times here at the desk, as he's been one of the big candidates for them to send up for interviews, etc. and stuff like that. And while normally at tournaments and stuff, there is a lot of confidence behind L5, doesn't feel like it's there just yet, as much as you did say that they've had a better performance in the previous series.
Yeah, exactly, Kalaris. I feel like we have 5 incredibly impressive individuals. How could we forget those amazing Rhaegar plays from Noblesse yesterday in the All-Star match? But that's truly what we have here, and I mean that in the negative and positive sense of the word. We have 5 amazing individuals here on L5. And I think in order for them to triumph here, they need to have, at some point today, come together as a team and feel we are in this together, Swoy. We are.
He's always relaxed.
That's pretty relaxed, I'll be honest. He's going into a tournament-defining game. It's chill. Yeah, it's fine.
But whatever has bothered them over the last few days needs to disappear here in the face of a common threat and to stand united against their greatest challenge of the tournament yet.
You witnessed as L5 took the BlizzCon trophy last year, Fan. What needs to come to this series for L5 compared to what we've seen from them so far here in the tournament?
I mean, like I said before, I feel like they just need to be consistent about their play. I've noticed in the past few days, their players, you know, Jiangha, he's been making quite a few mistakes in the previous few days. Nachojin, he's been looking a little bit uncomfortable. But today, they looked really good. Now, granted, it was against that stumbling E-Star, but if they can just, like Grubby said, play as a team and don't make too many of those stumbling mistakes from individual players, I think they could do it.
All right, let's focus now on MVP Black, another previous world champion. As for the longest time, who can even forget the time when they were defeated in series, something like 40-0. But here they are with two new members, new-ish members compared to their old standing roster in Reset and Tist. And I think Reset and Tist have definitely taken to the team extremely, extremely well, Grubby.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with Reset in particular. Tist is still adapting to the Anubarak meta, but since it's Korea versus Korea, I guess they can pretend that everything that happened doesn't exist because they had a meta among them before they flew over to Sweden. However, of course, everyone did learn. Tist by now has had a lot of experience on that, but I do agree they fit in well, and MVP have looked like the slightly stronger team here than L5.
More than just the EU meta, we saw these teams running the Vala Ariel double support with an Uther combo.
Yeah.
The meta has severely affected them, and because you have the talented players on both of these teams, they can adapt more quickly than probably some other teams, particularly Sake, who is that back-ranged assassin. They're like, Sake, go to work, we'll support you, and they've really rallied behind him.
Any other thoughts, Fan, on MVP Black and their position in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that this is a Korea versus Korea game because in the past few days we've seen Sake try and adapt to like the Western meta. We've seen him play Medivh, maybe look a little bit uncomfortable on it. Like J-Hal said, these teams love to run that Vala Oriel or the Tassadar Tracer style meta that's more Eastern. So I wonder what they're going to end up pulling out here.
I'm wondering where we're going to be for maps, because that's going to be one of the defining factors here, really, of these two teams do go up against one another. And of course, here is Reset, one of the guys that I'm glad to see how well they have meshed with one another. Obviously, after this tournament, they will be losing Meriday, but overall, I believe Rich is coming in, right? So everybody knows kind of the MVP is going to be still staying on a pretty even power level, if not trying to kind of surpass that as the future progresses. But everything is not done here for the mid-season Brawl just yet. They still are hungry to try and get to themselves to that grand final.
I think hungry is a good thing. You know, I know we're going to get to the map ban soon, but I was doing a little bit of research. Both teams, both of them have consistently stayed away from Braxis. So I wonder if their teams will even waste a ban on that, right? So then you start looking, it was Gilly talking about the other day about how MVP Black, they now prioritize Towers of Doom. Coincidentally, that is also L5's worst map, not showing up here, but here we go.
Yeah, so Braxis gets taken out, but the other StarCraft map with an equally awesome soundtrack, Warhead Junction, is still available. I was thinking maybe, you know, Braxis and Warhead are going to be deleted, but here we go with the Sky Temple and Braxis away.
Yeah, so it will be Dragonshire for our first map between these two teams, and it's a map that it definitely has its own picks, you know, and its own priority in some situations that can stand out. So between these two teams, Fan, what are we thinking for Dragonshire?
Dragonshire is pretty interesting to me. I immediately think of the Chen pick for MVP Black. They've run it quite a few times. This is a map where it can be really good on the top side of the map if you don't, you know, draft well against it.
Quick numbers for you guys on this map. Dragonshire, highest win percentage for MVP Black. They're 9-1 since the start of the year, the 90%. 21 games played for this roster for L5, 71% win percentage.
So it's a good map.
It's a good map for MVP Black. That's actually that's the second lowest win percentage for L5. That's how good they are. That when I say 71%.
Oh, 71 is bad? Oh, yeah.
For L5, yes. That's what's funny. It's their second lowest win percentage map.
All right, we're getting into it then. Game number 1, L5 going up against MVP Black. Dragonshire will be the map. It's a best of 5, but the winner will advance on to play against Dignitas. The loser is eliminated from the mid-season brawl.
Yeah, in that 4th place that really doesn't have nearly as much prize money or prestige. Of course, all these teams are going for first.
I mean, I don't think any of these teams will be satisfied with much else other than first, being 2 world champions here. But going into the draft, we have the first ban, Abathur for L5. Once again, Dragon Char is not a map that you commonly see Abathur on. Dignitas did run it the other day, but ended up losing out to MVP Black there. So this tells me that L5 knows that MVP Black runs an Abathur comp on this map, and they don't want to deal with it, so.
The surprising thing for me is Uther, somehow not first pick, not during the second picks by MVP Black. It's saying, L5, here, have this. They prioritize Dahaka, who is phenomenal on this map because of his top lane control and his global presence. Just an absolute terror on this map. And I wonder if we get to the later end of the draft, if we might see that Dahaka false that a little bit scarier to pick into, depending on, again, between both these teams, heavy contention on the Zeratul.
I want to hear what you're thinking about this, fan. What Jayhow said, you give Uther willingly.
Yeah, for the first pick, or for the MVP Black pick order, the Dahaka and the Anubrak being taken over the Uther. I mean, the thing is, there's just so many strong meta picks at the moment. Without the threat of the Uther Vala Oreo Trinity, that does remove one of the power spikes of Uther. Obviously, he still has a lot of other heroes that he synergizes well with. But when you're talking about Dragon Char, Dahaka is just such an incredibly strong hero. Yeah. And Anubrak might just be the hero of the entire tournament as well. So not overly surprised, but it's just, there's so many strong picks in this tournament meta.
And speaking of picks and someone who's good to get them, Stitches comes out for L5, pairing with that Uther. So we do see a bleeding over of the meta that we just saw maybe between Dignitas and Fnatic, or perhaps the simultaneous conclusion and discovery of the effectiveness of this hero as this tournament progresses by the Koreans and the Europeans. And now MVP Black needs to solve protection against pick-off potential from Stitches. Sake already showed his love for Medivh in this tournament. It would be the go-to pick if you want to protect here.
We see they go with the Malfurion Li Ming. They could still flex into the last pick, Medivh. Kind of conflicted about it, honestly, because Sake did not show an amazing performance last time he played it, but I do think it is a good pick if the player is extremely comfortable with that hero here.
If Black picks up Medivh, they would slightly lack in the finishing department. Li Ming would have trouble getting resets, maybe.
I feel like MVP Black is just daring L5 to go into a false stat. That could be that flex Zeratul pick at the end. They already have the Dahaka. Reset can play on that front line. We've seen him play on that front line before. Kyocha, generally the extra frontliner or the Zeratul player. We've seen Reset, obviously, in this tournament on the Chen, heroes like that, so I think he's capable. But again, the lack of L5 without a global on this map will be surprising, although Genji has such mobility that it kind of makes up for it.
Maybe Nazeebo or Falstad for this last pick here. Oh, and a Tychus. So they are not going for the global or late game strategy. They're just full pick comp. They're going to try and run over MVP Black. And we do see the last pick, Medivh, come out.
So Medivh is great against Stitches and Uther deletion. He's so-so against Genji because he actually has to protect himself often against the penetration of the backline that Genji can do. And then he's not that good against Arthas Tychus either, as their damage comes out in a trickle. So Black, they got the idea of Medivh against Stitches, but they flexed Medivh, still went through with it despite the last two picks of L5. That worries me a little bit for MVP Black. Additionally, not a true finisher for Li Ming. She can do a lot of poke, but to actually finish, usually you want to get up with a melee assassin. I'm not sure if Dahaka will fulfill that role efficiently.
I agree with you. I really agree with you in the sense that we now have a lot on the other side on L5 to deal with a lot of the stuns, the potential dive composition that you see from a new rank that we've seen so much. You get the armor from that. We already saw Relentless Soldier being used by Tychus previously. You also have Icebound Fortitude for Arthas, so you have a lot to deal with. I think the potential dive of MVP, despite them not having a lot of dive, but with the initiation of Anubrak being the key cog for all Anubarak compositions, it seems like L5 has a lot to deal with that.
It's time to pick a side.
I really like what I see from L5 in this draft. I am terrified of the lack of global, but I'm going to put my faith in L5 and go with L5 game 1.
Okay.
If L5 loses, it'll be due to a lack of global, but I think their team fight blows MVP Black out of the water. I didn't think I'll be saying this, but I'm going to go with L5.
Fan?
I do think that L5 has the stronger team comp here, but like you guys said, the global plus the fact that Medivh can kind of fake rotations and just maneuver really sneakily around Dragonshire in particular, I'm going to go with MVP Black on this one.
All right, well, let's see what chat thinks as well, as they've been voting with the hashtag for either of these teams. And 50-50.
This seems similar to last time.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That's, maybe it just started now, who knows? But there you go. So that is the predictions. Thank you very much, guys, as we get into this Korea going up against Korea. Again, world champion against world champion. Let's head over to the commentary team for game number 1.
It's Korea versus Korea, and the loser of this series will be out of the tournament. And that's not quite what we expected here, but it is definitely going to be intense.
Yeah, I did not guess that we were going to be sending Korea home so early. Only one of them, but a Korean team home as early as this at the mid-season Brawl. But in the blue is L5 with SC on Genji, Noblesse playing the Stitches, Swoi on Uther, Zhongha on Arthas, and Taika's played by Nacho Jin.
And over to the right side of the map, we have MVP Black with Kyoja on the Haka, Tist on Anubarak, Malfurion played by Meride, Leeming played by Reset, and Saka on the Medivh.
The global, our analyst has talked about it so much. The global factor post-20 and the Medivh rotations are very deceiving all around this kind of triangle of death is what I like to call it here on Dragonshire. MVP Black needs to focus on their priority of kills and rotations all around this in Fog of War.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the big tools that they have in the arsenal right now. L5 has a really strong team comp when we're looking at 5 versus 5, but of course you can try to out-rotate here. Good hook against Kyoja, using the burrow to dodge, and immediately the follow-up with the portal as he is allowed to escape.
That was a nice hook there. I have a lot of L5's comp, I think, is going to be just throwing out random hooks and hoping that they end up getting one to land using the Howling Blast and Arthas' natural slow to hope they can't get out. But again, the Medivh, Sake should have those portals. Post 13, the portal is, I mean, identical cooldown, and it's almost got 100% uptime to that of the hook.
He could definitely be the complete changer of this entire game and the dynamic here, and Sake has to deliver here. They're locking a target down, helping hand being used. Anubarak goes in, and Swoi dies. First blood in the game. MVP Black takes the kill.
Yeah, I like that pick there, and you know, the fact that L5 is already struggling into early picks here is a bit of a problem. I didn't think that L5 or MVP Black, excuse me, would have necessarily a dominant 1 through 9. That they're, you know, yes, they do have the Medivh, but it just in that situation, getting caught out like that, it feels a bit uncharacteristic of L5.
We've been talking about this actually a lot, that both of the Korean teams had troubles getting into the tournament here and really coming online. With L5, when they played earlier today, we saw them finally showing that Korean macro and micro in particular during the team fights. MVP Black was also starting to improve a lot here and felt very confident in the interview, but you can definitely still see that there are some problems with both teams.
Yeah, L5 today, it felt their execution and their compositions that they ran up against Eastar felt so clean in certain circumstances, to where I felt like for sure they would come out just guns blazing in the series. I thought they were the better Korean team, but now looking at the draft and how this has played out, I'm beginning to second guess myself.
Especially on Battlefield of Eternity, looked fantastic with the Zeratul composition that they pulled off.
Yeah, they did. It's extremely technical, right? It was by no means an easy win condition for them. They didn't only just find it, they flat out almost flawlessly executed it.
The burn of execution was on them, and they pulled it off, so they looked strong there. But now Black is starting to take a bit of a lead here. They go for the first Dragonite. HGC still with the interrupt. Both of the teams dancing around and to the top lane. And at the bottom, a recapturing of the shrine is in progress. But Nacho Jin is in trouble.
Nice heal there coming out from Swoi, but it's not enough to keep him up now. MVP Black, again, abusing the portals coming out from Sake. Again, around that death triangle, with this 2 lanes being so close together, Medivh is only going to be more and more impactful, again, as he closes in onto that 13 talent tier.
I really like the mobility that we have for Black, and they're using that very well so far. But L5 has taken control of both of these shrines now and will look for Dragonite. But first of all, we have the engagement at the bot lane. Once again, as Noblesse finds himself in a lot of trouble here, but still being healed out and Stitches not falling.
I've been really impressed with the pressure we've seen MVP Black have on top. The Dahaka matchup, the entire time into the Arthas, that Kyocha has been so impactful. Talking about that, he's going to go for the Shadow Stalk in. Or excuse me, the Burrow Charge in. Oh man, that was a double wrong name, but either way, Uther easily picked off.
Yeah, no matter what we call it here, it's still effective. Takes him down, and that is Uther falling. And I have to agree with you here. Black is the team that I expected in the early game to adapt to whatever L5 is doing, and it's exactly the other way around.
Yeah, it is. And now, again, I begin to second guess myself. My analysis over the Korean teams has swayed back and forth, it feels like 20 times throughout the midseason brawl. Nice initiation. The knockup is there. Nacho Jin is going to be another member falling. This is 4 picks to none. MVP Black is very confident through this 4-man.
Yeah, they're really showing up here, and they're forcing their game onto the opponent. L5 seems a little bit weird and slow on the reaction here to this style. But of course, the level 10, that could change everything. We talked in the draft about it. They let them have Genji plus the Uther. The Divine Shield combo is definitely there, and it is a huge threat. Do you think that Black will be able, after 10, to really still contest this?
I mean, it's their team fight, a lot of it comes down to the Medivh. Medivh, Genji is another one where I have a hard time gauging the strength of them. I know that they are extremely impactful, but I always feel it comes down to the strength of the user, the comfortability within the hero itself. Sake has been not as impressive as I was hoping to see for him as a Medivh player, but it is enough. He is still, you know, he's got Leyline Seal. That thing is insane. The portals, the shielding. So there is potential, but I'm not sold on it.
Leyline Seal alone can destroy so many plays of the opponent, so this is definitely going to be having a huge impact here. And it comes down, as we said at the start, mainly to how Medivh is going to shield his allies, how he's going to be able to set also plays up for the team. But at this point of the game, both of the Korean teams are still dancing around each other, around the 2 temples, and trying to get the upper hand to secure the first Dragon Knight of the game.
Yeah, it's, you know, both of these teams over-focus onto wave clear, which is often what we see from European and North American teams on this map. So because of that, we don't see any team pulling ahead into the 4 outside of, again, the Medivh ganks out of the side of MVP Black. It's just both teams kind of volunteered that their 1 through 10s in their Dragon Shire isn't that good. They're more worried about the later parts of the game, the 13s, the 16s, and those full 5-on-5s.
One of the interesting things is that partly because of the Medivh, but also because of the quick reinitiation by a Nubarak, the hook didn't really have much of an impact just yet. Normally when you see a Stitches comboed off with Arthur's Uther, you expect these scenarios where hook comes in and then you get the kill, but that hasn't happened so far.
Interrupt.
L5 is still picking up the Dragon Knight though.
Yeah, the interrupt in the rotation coming out from Tis was legitimately a fraction of a second behind, which leads to an early Dragon Knight only 6 minutes into the game. And also with MVP Black, what they managed to happen in the first couple of seconds in the lack of siege on the side of L5, this is merely just buying time and getting rotations. It's actually more beneficial for L5 to split push with this Dragon Knight than it is to 5-man commit or even 4-man commit.
Yeah, and they're doing exactly that now. They're trying also to get a few structures, a slight lead in experience would help them here. But right now, it's still 10 abilities on both sides. We have the Cocoon again, the Twilight Dream. The only hero that hasn't made a choice yet is Li Ming.
Yeah, Li Ming, I'm trying to figure out if we can make a solid argument to the difference between Disintegrate and the Wave of Force. There's no major Cocoon. There's no, you know, ETC to interrupt here. So I think a lot of it's going to come down to comfortability. I personally like Wave of Force as the default and Disintegrate as a situational. Yeah. But a lot of the teams like the reliability of that damage output.
The cool thing about Wave of Forces, though, it sets up so many great plays.
Exactly.
And especially if you have an Uther against you, it is fantastic. We've seen this in the previous series. Fnatic versus Dignitas. Some of the plays that were set up by Shrimpy on the Li Ming with the Wave of Force and kills were fantastic. And Black is following that trend. They are going into the Wave of Force here and neglect a bit of the potential damage output in favor of utility.
A lot of damage going on to Sake. He drops a portal. Leyline is going to be used too. That is a missed initiation coming out from Tis. Now, Mary Day did get the peel, but L5 would like to engage But again, Dragonshire, well, the reason we see wave clear focus so heavily is because the lane's distance to safety, fort to fort, is so short that it's really unreliable to get big team fights until those later levels. Again, showing the style of draft these teams have ended up picking.
Yeah, open up the map is one of the things that's going to have a huge impact on the game there. And once again, we saw, as you said, from Malfurion, a great route, just making sure that there could not be a follow-up hit. Once again, yeah, though, the route on the ground, they're trying to go for a Swoy. He comes in with a stun and is dodging so far. Everything eats the damage, though, and we have the silence coming in, but everybody moves out. So far, L5 goes in with a Dragon Blade and is finally able to secure a kill.
Love the fact that Arth is making the rotation down to ensure the pick hook. It is not connecting for Noblesse. Portal is going to make sure that Sake gets out of this, but now we see L5 able to pick up their first kill of the game here. What can they do with it? If they can, you know, open this fort and actually take it down, that helps rotations so much. Stitch's hook can suddenly becomes a very viable kill strategy here for L5, and the fact that L5 picked up a Dragon Knight and was able to get it earlier, it shows that all these structures are going to be very, very high impact.
There comes the Haka, though, from the back as the reinitiation of MVP Black happens. They don't have the 30 talent. They still risk the approach, though. And Kyoja is not hitting the drag here. He only hits the minion. So it was a nice idea. It was aggressive, and they were still down a talent, but they were willing to risk it. They don't get the kill, though. And now that they lose the fort, it's going to make it incredibly difficult if L5 gets both of the shrines, since all of a sudden Stitch just has so much space to play with.
Yeah, Dahaka is going to match the Arthas here again with MVP Black having the global advantage. We need to see Kyocha hit those drags. We heard the analysts talk about it, but the global. We know Dragonshire, you suddenly play the whole map different if you manage to have that kind of pressure onto the map. But so far, because of the lack of drags connecting, we are yet to see that here out of MVP Black. All heroics, but Army of the Dead is online.
Once again, they try to go for Stitches here. Portal is in. They move away. Noblesse even dropping the Putrid Bile. The hook hits home, and this one is good. They're trying to still escape, and Meriday using the Ice Block is actually able to get out of there. Unbelievable. It looked like he was dead for sure, and then he's able to sneak away the Ice Block, mitigating some of the damage. Now MVP Black has 13 and goes back in.
There is another global use there from Kyocha, but no drag impact yet. Divine Shield's going to be used. The portal, the Twilight Dream is there, but nobody is going down. Swoy hits so much pressure from Kyocha. Meriday with the kite. SCSC is just begging for a reset. There's going to be one, but not for him.
Lei Ming down. SCSC is trying to see if he can maybe secure a second kill. Not thus far. And once again, with the portal, a bit of poke happening as we see Medivh causing trouble. But L5, 2 kills against 4, are once again looking good here in the team fight.
MVP Black was successful. All 4 of their kills happened into the rotation, the triangle of death in that part of the map on Dragonshire. But since then, there is yet to be a kill gained here with their composition. They aren't really getting, again, too much pressure from the global, and their team fight isn't looking too pretty either. L5 should gain a lot of momentum here.
I'm actually afraid that they're running away with the momentum once they hit 16.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it is just begging for a miracle play, and depressingly enough, when you look at the miracle plays on MVP Blacks, it comes down to, again, Sake and again, Kyocha. Those are the game changers. So when they haven't had that yet, can we expect that from them later? Nice portal, Leyline Force again. Sake,
nice
Ravens.
Good dodge on Howling Blast, but here's a CSC, and he goes in, gets the kill with a Dragon Blade, and he wants to. He jumps in once again, and this is looking like we could see a follow-up. Meriday in the back is rushing away, and as CSC is low, has to retreat. 1 kill for L5 as they are closing in on the level 16 talent.
Yeah, Sake had a beautiful shield there on the Medivh to deny a reset, but SCSC understood the circumstances perfectly, used the Cyber Agility over the wall, and somehow kited his way out. Now the portal is there. Nice block under the hook. Kyocha is up here with the members, but it cost a Dragon Knight and 16 Talonteers.
Oh, the timing couldn't be any better, could it?
It could not. We even see this heavy emphasis through top. I personally, we always talk about which lane do you go with the Dragon Knight when. I like this only because L5, not only do they have a huge advantage and they can cycle to other parts of the map afterwards, but everybody was up here. Consider your time. Time is another variable you have to consider to maximize your advantages. And so swift rotation. Now, this is beautiful from L5.
They are bullying them right now, and they are getting a lot of structural damage here. They already took down the fort at the top lane. And also keep in mind, with every single structure they take down, they set themselves even further apart from MVP Black and just increase their lead towards level 20 and open up the map for Stitches, for hooks, and to just move in as 5 to the bot lane is exactly what they should do here. They are going to get the last 4 that MVP Black holds on the map.
That was a beautiful rotation. And again, now all the first line of structures are removed off to the map. Sake again is forced to panic Leyline Seal as the defense to just one hook. He would have been able to make it out either way, and this shows a bit of miscommunication from MVP.
There's pressure on them now, and they seem to crumble here. They had a few of these plays already, and that's a big cooldown that they just wasted. They had the portal there. Meriday was also moving in with another route, trying to help Sake escape. But at this point, it's just the L5 show. They are going in, they take the structures, they steal the camp, and they are just looking to dominate the map, paint it blue, and take as many camps away from their opponent as they possibly can.
I'm trying to figure out, beyond, again, the amazing plays that the Medivh and the Dahaka can make out, is there any 16 talent here that they could have taken to change things, to maybe catch L5 off guard? I know one that stands out to me is like, it's impactful, but we rarely see it, is the Circle of Protection. Maybe something like that to just, you know, catch them off guard, because right now, MVP Black looked good for legitimately 4 minutes, and now it just feels like they are crumbling under what L5 has managed to make happen.
It just feels they don't get the initiation they want. And this is the one hope that I still have for them here, that now that they're on 16 talents, they realize, hey, we have 2 levels up to level 5 hitting, L5 hitting 20. Let's get that initiation just once, try to make the play here, because if they don't make it now, they make it never.
Yeah, it's a nice cleanse, but the damage is there. MVP Black already losing a member. Cocoon is getting out onto Genji, but SCSC has found himself revealed. Kyoja gets the stun. 2 members are now down for MVP Black. L5 just is going to pressure up this keep front wall. I mean, MVP Black's crumbling apart. They aren't even trying to force these fights. It's a full retreat the minute a hook comes out.
L5 is just looking better and better. They looked already great against Eastab, against MVP Black after a shaky early game. They're doing fantastic. Here comes the Leyline scene. It's a big one, but they have only 3 heroes in this fight. It's a 3 versus 5. Najajin on the Odin right now, and L5 is willing to retreat. They don't push for the keep. They play this safe. They know how far ahead they are right now, as long as they don't lose heroes.
Yeah, with 4 seconds for the Dragonite Shrines to spawn, it should be, if it's not a Dragonite instantly, it could be a very easy one with just 1 cycle of rotations. They already have pressure through the camp up on top. Uther has found himself in transitioning towards bottom right now. MVP Black essentially chooses one side of the map and they have to hyper commit. They have volunteered towards bottom. If they get a pick here, that would be ideal. But obviously, L5, safe positioning, they would retreat.
Yeah, and the one thing that worries me also a bit in the future team fights is that they let it through on purpose, but the combo with Genji having the Divine Shield and going in with the Dragon Blade is pushing this much pressure onto the backline that it seems very tricky for MVP Black to keep their heroes alive. They initiate again. They're looking for the kill, but once again, they cannot make it happen.
They absolutely need this fight before the 20 spike is there. It forces Brawl from Kyoja. Nice shielding there from Sake. But they just portal out.
Yeah.
The thing is that the one thing that's interesting from MVP Black and how they're approaching this, I mean, don't get me wrong, the draft in their composition, it's difficult to execute, but they aren't willing to take a risk. Even right there, it feels like you could see they're like, we want this initiation, but now they're going to find themselves down the 20 tier. It's going to be, they have no wave clear. We've seen 0 global pressure from them. L5 has just found themselves in a spot to where I don't know if they can lose.
There's the route. They try to go for the Arthurs, but there's already the Divine Shield. Once again, as we're seeing, L5 turns us around. They engage. They have the 20. They're trying to get the kills, and they do. And Nubarak is down, and the second one about to follow. Burrow already used, but Kyoja, is he going to get away here? Doesn't look likely. Dehaka down, and that's the entire front line decimated of MVP Black. L5 can move into the Dragon Eye, and Genji isn't even done yet, or is he?
Wow, with that last Dragon Blade slice, getting it out of the range of the magic missiles keeps him alive. But now we see L5 has got the 20 talent here, a 17-minute Dragonite, and 2 members down for MVP Black. Meriday with the last attempt Hail Mary Twilight Dream. It gains no value. Odin down. I think this is it.
This is devastating. There's the hook as well. They're trying to go in. The escape through the portal, barely able to help out the ally here. But once again, we have them pushing in with the Odin, with the Dragon Knight. And L5 is going for the core right now. They want game number 1. And MVP Black has nothing to stop them. The Dragon Knight is hammering away way too much damage. And this is it. L5 takes the game on Dragonshire.
Very interesting to see how that game played out. After the draft, in the first couple of minutes, I MVP with those picks. But then again, after the laning phase, after the first Dragon Knight, they did not get a single kill.
In the early game, they really looked like the mobility they had in the draft would help them to control the map a lot better. And then, all of a sudden, L5 able to force fights in their favor, take the first Dragon Knight, win the team fights, and put an incredible amount of pressure onto MVP Black. Once they were able to take down structures, they were so far at an experience that MVP could never recover.
Yeah, again, the only way really to recover from those type of horrific situations on Dragonshire is wave clear. They're one of the only ways, or a global, and we didn't really ever see, the wave clear wasn't there, and the global never really seemed to come online for MVP Black. So it just one, rotation after rotation, and it felt like after that, they just didn't know what to do with the comp.
Yeah, Dehaka didn't really have the impact they were hoping for, did not land those drags, and therefore they didn't result in kills. But of course, there's a lot more that happened in game number 1, and I'm sure that the panel wants to talk about it.
That's right. They described it as interesting to see how these two teams stacked up against one another. And I think it's definitely very true what we saw there coming out. One thing that I'm finding myself watching is a little bit of doubt in Sake's Medivh. I can't tell where it is, but I never thought I would actually be saying this about Sake being the phenomenal player he is. But I don't know if they actually work so well with the Medivh comps. What's your thought?
You were basically going to take the words that I was going to say. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm watching it the entire time, and something's missing from that comp. Sure, you have the portals to get out, but if your sole purpose of Medivh is on a defensive stance, then it's troublesome. Obviously, Stitches is a good reason to have a good escape route, but this is now multiple games that we've seen that it just hasn't necessarily been the offensive style that you'd normally see Medivh teams try and run. At some point, you've got to open it up and find an opening. And in multiple games, it's not jumping out at me that that's what they're doing with it.
But to be honest, I think Sake, I agree with what you said. I think Sake mechanically can play Medivh properly, but I think there was two major things that were lacking here. There was a need for wave clear, and Medivh doesn't fulfill that until level 20 with the Last Guardian. And the same thing, also Medivh is great against burst, not against sustain. Two very simple things that feature in heavily in the judgment of when to pick Medivh. And I feel like that, in the lack of experience that Sake and his team have, is putting them unfavorably optimistically disposed towards a Medivh pick. And I think it was just simply wrong. They can still bring it out later, but not in this situation.
Do you reinforce these points, Fan? Is it something that stands out to you, just as the comp overall, or what? How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm disappointed in two things about that set from MVP Black. The first one was the global plus the Medivh portal. I thought they would be able to use that to kind of out-rotate L5 and get an advantage early on in the game. They did not manage to really do that. Instead, L5 controlled the DKs most of the game. And the second thing was just pretty much Sake's understanding of Medivh. I was hoping he would, go look at the games last night and really try and figure out what he's doing wrong. Yesterday, he died like 3 or 4 times on Medivh against Roll20 without using Leyline, when he had so many opportunities to just use it. And I have a replay here. This is the last kind of fight. There wasn't really much of a fight here, but we can go into it and see what happens. So Jiangha, he is channeling the DK. They're about to get 20. Mary Day stalls him. This is a good fight for MVP Black. There's not 20 on the other side yet. So if we can pause it here. So we see Mary Day, he stalled it out. Right at this moment, they did turn 20. So this is going to be a bad fight no matter what. The D-Shield goes onto the Arthas. He pops goals. He's going to be able to turn around on you guys, and this is a 20 fight. You don't want it. And here's the thing. Sake has Leyline Seal here. This is clearly a bad situation for your team. You dropped the portal. You dropped the shield already. So now you need to rely on your Leyline. Just cast Leyline. You need to try and save your team, right? So if we can play on here. So we see both Sake and Mary Day getting zoned out by SCSC. Good play there. And here we see Sake, his team is dying very, very slowly. There's like 20 seconds that passed throughout this team fight. Sake gets hooked here. This was a good hook because it meant that Dahaka died for sure. He had to use his portal to save himself instead of saving his Dahaka. But the dude still got leyline. Like, why is he not pressing the button? I don't, what?
I haven't heard fan this worked up yet.
It just reminds me of the movie Warcraft The Beginning all over again.
Oh, no.
With the son of the king, Medivh, standing there watching and not doing anything to save everyone.
Spoilers?
The movie is out.
And it's been heavy Warcraft lore for many, many years.
But I don't think it's 100% only down to Sake. I think it was a great point. But when you're level 17 against 19.9, you use Medivh and Meride to do the extraction and the cancel. But why is Dahaka rotating to the middle? They're going for an all-in, 3-level down, Storm Tier talent disadvantage fight. For all intents and purposes, MVP should have been sending someone to one of the beacons.
Right.
You do this epic delay for no reason whatsoever. Because if you lose the fight, you die. If you don't win the fight, they still get the Dragonite.
Yeah. It was the son of Lothar, not the son of the king. My lore brain was ticking away.
Lothar's not the king?
No, Lothar's not the king.
Oh, thank you.
But anyway, never mind.
I'm so disappointed.
That's the real spoiler. I was trying to actually...
Oh, no! Oh,
surprise!
I was trying to layer it in discretion, just like give them something to...
Grubby, you've bamboozled me. All right.
Damn you, Kalaris, and your spoilers.
We're going on to Infernal Shrines for game number 2 here. That was the second time I've heard Fan get loud and angry there going into this tournament. But overall, Infernal Shrines is a map where MVP can come back here against L5's better execution on Dragonshire, correct?
They can.
They can.
They could also fall into a deeper hole. So they could also not. Many options, actually.
Wow.
Well, that's one thing that's for sure, Kalaris.